The galaxy's premier academy floated silently above a distant star system, a vast structure of gleaming metal and glass that shone like a jewel in the void. Ships of all shapes and sizes came and went, carrying students, instructors, and diplomats from countless planets. For centuries, this academy had trained the galaxy's brightest minds, the ones destined to lead fleets, explore uncharted worlds, and invent technologies that shape the future. To be admitted here was an honor few could achieve, and the halls buzzed with ambition, rivalry, and pride. On a quiet morning, as the twin suns rose over the Academy's orbiting platforms, a small shuttle appeared at the docking bay. It moved with precision and elegance, guided by a pilot whose skill was evident in every subtle maneuver. The shuttle's markings were unfamiliar, no known planetary insignia, no student registry symbols. The crew that greeted it glanced at each other with curiosity, whispering as they opened the bay doors. From the shuttle stepped a young woman. Her movements were calm and measured, her posture confident but not arrogant. She wore the standard uniform of the Academy's cadets, but it seemed almost tailored to her, the fabric shifting perfectly with each step. Her eyes were sharp and observant, scanning the docking bay and the students milling about. There was a quiet energy about her, an aura that suggested experience beyond her years. "Name?" asked a docking officer, glancing at the shuttle's log. "Lyra," she replied simply. Her voice was steady, even carrying a subtle authority that drew attention without demanding it. The officer raised an eyebrow. No planetary affiliation, no sponsor. Students paused mid-step, craning their necks to catch a glimpse. "Who is she?" one murmured. "Where did she come from?" another asked. Lyra ignored them, keeping her pace steady and deliberate, but her presence was magnetic. She seemed aware of every glance and every whispered speculation, yet she did not react. The Academy's main hall was a towering space of polished metal and glass, with floating holographic displays showing everything from star charts to theoretical physics models. Students gathered in groups, discussing projects, simulations, and rumors. Lyra moved to the registration desk, where a young instructor greeted her. "Welcome to the Academy," he said, smiling. "I see you've been assigned to the Stellar Strategy program. That's unusual for a new student without sponsorship. You must have an exceptional record. You've already mastered advanced simulations that most cadets won't touch for years. Welcome aboard, Lyra." She did not react to any of it. In her assigned room, Lyra unpacked a few essentials. The space was small but functional, with a view of the stars stretching endlessly outside the window. She took a deep breath, savoring the quiet for a moment. Then she opened a small compartment in her bag, revealing a holographic device. A familiar face appeared, projected in blue light. "Lyra," the figure said, voice urgent. "Your integration into the Academy is critical. Observe, adapt, and proceed carefully. The others are not yet aware of the threat approaching. You must gather information discreetly." The challenge was exactly what she had trained for, and she was ready. The next morning, Lyra entered the training halls. The Academy's students were undergoing simulations in starship piloting, tactical strategy, and multi-species coordination exercises. Lyra's first assignment was a piloting simulation, a standard test for all new students. She stepped into the cockpit of a sleek simulation craft, adjusting controls with precision. The simulation began. Obstacles appeared, starcraft moved in unpredictable patterns, and emergency situations tested reflexes and decision-making. Lyra reacted quickly, but not recklessly. She analyzed each scenario, predicted patterns, and found solutions that others overlooked. When the simulation ended, she had not only completed the exercise but achieved the highest score in her group by a significant margin. A few students exchanged glances. One whispered, "Who is she? She's too good." Another muttered, "No way a new cadet can handle that." Lyra ignored them. She did not need their approval, only the results. Later, in the theory halls, Lyra attended a class on galactic strategy and interstellar diplomacy. The professor presented a complex problem involving resource allocation across multiple star systems and the potential for political conflict. The students debated, presenting calculations, probabilities, and proposed solutions. Lyra remained quiet at first, observing each argument carefully. When the discussion reached a deadlock, she raised her hand. "May I?" The room fell silent. Lyra stepped forward and laid out a plan that combined elements of negotiation, resource efficiency, and contingency strategies. Her approach was elegant yet practical, relying on human creativity and intuition rather than rigid logic alone. The professor's eyes widened. "Remarkable," he said. You've integrated multiple perspectives in a way I've never seen before at this level. Several students muttered in surprise. Lyra returned to her seat without a word, her expression calm and composed. By the evening, whispers of her skills had spread. Some students admired her, others felt threatened. In the cafeteria, small groups watched her as she sat quietly, eating and reading a holographic file. A few attempted conversation, testing her patience and humor. Lyra responded politely, offering insights or brief observations, never revealing more than necessary. One group of students, led by a young alien named Krivos, decided to challenge her. "She's just a beginner," Krivos said. "No one can be this good without a sponsor or history. Let's see how she performs when under real pressure." Lyra, however, moved with calm precision. She predicted enemy movements, optimized her craft's capabilities, and achieved the objective with minimal risk. Krivos stared at the results, unable to hide his disbelief. "How?" he muttered. The other students looked on in awe, realizing that Lyra's skills were not just exceptional, they were extraordinary. That evening, Lyra returned to her room. She activated the holographic device once more. "Report," she said. "The integration is proceeding well," the figure replied. "You have drawn attention, expect scrutiny and challenges, maintain discretion, gather information on potential threats to the Academy. Your human adaptability is your greatest asset." "I will continue to observe and adapt." She deactivated the device, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Yet, despite the challenge, she felt alive. For the first time in a long while, she was where she needed to be, at the heart of a place where her abilities could make a difference. Days passed, and Lyra settled into the rhythm of the Academy. She trained in piloting, strategy, and diplomacy, always performing at the top of her class. Students began to seek her advice, grudgingly at first, then with genuine respect. Teachers noticed her aptitude and often asked for her input on simulations and theoretical exercises. Yet despite the recognition, Lyra remained mysterious. She never revealed her past, her home world, or the full extent of her skills. One evening, while walking through the observation deck, Lyra looked out at the stars stretching endlessly before her. She thought about the mission she had been given, the secret she carried, and the challenges ahead. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, dangers lurked that no one at the Academy yet understood. Her role here was not just to train, it was to protect, to prepare, and to ensure that humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. A student approached, a young human boy named Jaren who had been struggling in simulations. "Lyra," he said nervously, "how do you do it? How do you stay so calm, so perfect?" "I observe, I think, and I act. You can do the same. Humanity's strength isn't just in talent, it's in curiosity, courage, and the willingness to try, even when you don't know the outcome." She knew that, as a human, she carried qualities others underestimated: creativity, adaptability, and the courage to face the unknown. Here, at the galaxy's premier academy, she would prove what humanity was capable of. And already, without anyone fully realizing it, she was beginning to change the academy, not just through skill, but through the quiet, undeniable strength of her presence. The academy was alive with activity the next morning. Students moved through the halls with purpose, rushing to classes, simulations, and strategy exercises. Whispers about Lyra followed her like a shadow. Some admired her, some envied her, and others felt uneasy around her quiet confidence. But Lyra herself walked with calm focus, as if the noise around her did not exist. In the training hall, the day's first challenge was announced: a multi-species tactical exercise. Students would be grouped into teams, and each team would manage resources, deploy starships, and protect critical assets against simulated enemy attacks. The exercise was designed not just to test skill, but to reveal leadership, teamwork, and adaptability. Lyra was assigned to a group with 4 other students. 2 were human like her, and 2 were aliens, Krivos and Velier, both from species renowned for their intelligence and tactical thinking. The moment Lyra joined the group, Krivos' eyes narrowed slightly. "You're the new student," he said, his tone polite but edged with challenge. "I suppose we'll see if you're all you're claimed to be." "I intend to match action with thought." Some team members panicked, issuing conflicting orders or hesitating at critical moments. Lyra watched carefully, noting patterns and weaknesses in both the enemy and her team. "Follow my lead," she said quietly. "We'll divide responsibilities. I'll handle navigation and deployment. Krivos, you manage offensive strikes. Velier, coordinate shields and support. Everyone else, monitor communications and report anomalies." By the end of the exercise, their fleet had successfully defended the starbase and neutralized the simulated enemy threat. Team members were impressed, some even shocked. Krivos, who had been determined to expose her as inexperienced, looked at her with grudging respect. "You handled that well," he admitted, voice low. "Better than I expected." "It was a team effort. We all contributed. There's something about her we don't know." Even in a controlled simulation, she gathered valuable information about how her fellow students thought and reacted under pressure. Later that day, during a lecture on interstellar politics, Lyra observed the class carefully. The professor presented a scenario: a conflict between two distant star systems, each claiming control over a newly discovered resource-rich planet. Students debated strategies, forming alliances, analyzing probabilities, and weighing moral and political implications. Many relied on rigid logic or historical precedent. Lyra listened quietly, absorbing the arguments. When the discussion reached an impasse, she raised her hand. "I suggest a three-step approach," she said. "First, establish a neutral observation outpost to gather accurate data. Second, create a communication channel that allows both sides to negotiate without escalation. Third, prepare contingency plans to prevent unauthorized aggression, using technology and strategy to deter, not provoke. This method balances diplomacy with defense, reducing risk while maintaining leverage. You've considered both human and non-human approaches, integrating negotiation with tactical precaution. Well done." It combined intelligence, foresight, and adaptability, human qualities that could not be easily predicted or countered. After the lecture, Lyra returned to her room, her mind still active. She activated the holographic device once more. "Report," she said. "Observation is proceeding as planned," the holographic figure replied. "Your integration into the academy is progressing. You have drawn attention from both students and faculty. Expect scrutiny and challenges. Continue to gather information discreetly. There may be hidden threats to the academy that require intervention. Your human ingenuity will be key." The corridors stretched far beyond the main halls, with research labs, private workshops, and observation decks offering views of distant galaxies. As she walked, she noticed subtle signs of tension among the students. Some were practicing advanced maneuvers in private, others were experimenting with technology, and a few seemed unusually anxious. She paused at a corridor junction and observed a small group of cadets. They were speaking in low voices, glancing around nervously. Though she could not hear all the words, their tone suggested they were planning something clandestine. Lyra filed the observation in her memory, noting the individuals for later monitoring. In the days that followed, Lyra's presence continued to stir curiosity and quiet rivalry. Krivos, in particular, seemed intent on testing her limits. He challenged her during simulations, attempting to create scenarios that would expose her weaknesses. Yet each time, Lyra adapted, combining skill, strategy, and creativity to overcome the obstacles. Her human ability to think differently, to approach problems from unexpected angles, gave her an edge that even the most seasoned cadets could not predict. One afternoon, during a starship piloting test, Krivos tried to trap Lyra in a simulated asteroid field with limited resources. The situation was designed to force a student to make mistakes. Lyra's calm assessment of the field, her anticipation of the simulated enemy's moves, and her willingness to take calculated risks allowed her not only to escape, but to complete the mission ahead of schedule. The room erupted in applause and murmurs of admiration. Krivos's jaw tightened, but even he could not deny her skill. "She's remarkable," he muttered under his breath. Lyra returned to her room that night and reflected on the day. She had earned the respect of some, provoked envy in others, and remained a mystery to all. Her mission, however, required more than skill in simulations and academics. She needed to observe, to gather intelligence, and to be ready for threats that could not yet be predicted. She activated the holographic device again. "What have you learned about potential threats within the academy?" she asked. The figure's blue light flickered. "There are anomalies. Certain individuals are not aligned with the academy's goals. They may attempt to disrupt operations or exploit resources. Monitor discreetly. Avoid direct confrontation unless necessary. Your human intuition and adaptability will allow you to act where others cannot." Humanity had always thrived in adversity, using intelligence, creativity, and courage to overcome challenges. Here, at the academy, she would continue to prove that strength. The following morning, Lyra arrived early for a strategy session. Several students were already gathered, preparing for a complex multi-fleet simulation. The instructor assigned teams, deliberately mixing species and experience levels to encourage collaboration. Lyra's team faced immediate challenges. One member misread sensor data, another hesitated at a critical moment, and the enemy simulation employed unpredictable tactics. The situation seemed to spiral toward failure. Lyra assessed the situation calmly. She adjusted the team's formation, assigned tasks according to each member's strengths, and introduced a strategy that relied on unconventional maneuvers. Her human creativity allowed them to turn potential failure into victory. By the end of the exercise, her team had achieved a near-perfect score, and the instructor praised their ingenuity. "Exceptional work," he said. "Lyra, your leadership and insight have clearly elevated your team. You've demonstrated that success depends not just on skill, but on adaptability and cooperation." Yet despite the attention, Lyra remained focused on her true goal: to observe, to learn, and to prepare for the greater challenges that lay ahead. Later that night in her room, Lyra reflected on the day's events. She had earned respect, navigated challenges, and begun to uncover subtle patterns within the academy. But she knew her mission was far from complete. The galaxy was vast, full of secrets and dangers that could threaten even the most secure institutions. Lyra gazed out at the stars, feeling a familiar determination settle in her chest. Humanity had always found ways to overcome the impossible. Here, at the galaxy's premier academy, she would continue that tradition, quietly, cleverly, and without fail. No one knew who she truly was, but her presence was already changing the academy in ways that could not be ignored. And Lyra was just getting started. The academy had settled into a steady rhythm. Students attended lectures, trained in simulations, and practiced strategies. Lyra continued to excel, drawing attention and admiration while remaining quietly observant. Yet beneath the polished halls and shining corridors, subtle signs of disturbance began to appear. It started with missing equipment. Small tools and personal devices vanished from labs and dormitories. At first, staff attributed it to carelessness, but the disappearances became more organized and frequent. Then, communications were disrupted. Messages between departments were delayed or scrambled. Finally, strange energy readings appeared near restricted areas. Lyra noticed all of this before most. She observed students exchanging secretive glances and noted patterns in the disrupted systems. Something was happening that went beyond normal academy life. She activated her small holographic device. "There are anomalies," the figure said. "Some may be internal, others may be external. Be prepared to act. You must gather information discreetly and maintain secrecy." The instructor explained that the exercise would now include hidden variables, sudden system failures, unexpected enemy maneuvers, and surprise environmental hazards. Most students looked nervous. Even seasoned cadets were unsettled. As the exercise began, Lyra noticed irregularities. The simulation ships acted unpredictably, as if controlled by an unknown influence. Sensors glitched at critical moments. While other students panicked or argued, Lyra analyzed the patterns. "Follow my lead," she said quietly. She instructed her team to adjust formation and compensate for anomalies using unconventional strategies. Using intuition and logic together, she predicted the erratic behavior and navigated their fleet through the simulation successfully. The instructor raised an eyebrow. "Impressive, Lyra. You anticipated variables that no one else noticed." The corridors were dim, illuminated by soft overhead lights. Security drones patrolled, but Lyra moved with care, avoiding detection. She arrived at a laboratory tucked into a far corner. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, she observed several students and an unknown figure, cloaked and masked. They were tampering with equipment that clearly belonged to Academy research. Lyra noted their movements and the patterns in which they accessed devices. The intruders seemed to be searching for something specific. Lyra stepped back, retreating silently to avoid detection. She recorded the layout and behavior of the intruders in her memory. Then she activated her holographic device. "I've identified unauthorized activity," she said. "Several individuals are exploiting Academy resources. I need guidance on how to proceed without raising suspicion." During class, she noticed that certain students avoided her gaze, whispering among themselves. Some were clearly uncomfortable around her. In a controlled exercise, they attempted to sabotage her team subtly, but Lyra anticipated their moves and neutralized the interference without drawing attention. The Academy's instructors remained unaware of the full scope of the problem. They assumed the anomalies were isolated incidents or errors in equipment. Lyra realized that she could not rely on the faculty to act quickly. If the disruptions escalated, the Academy could be in danger. She began a series of subtle tests to identify the individuals behind the disturbances. In the dormitories, she left decoy devices and observed reactions. In the labs, she monitored energy fluctuations and sensor readings. Her human ingenuity, combining observation, deduction, and improvisation, allowed her to gather intelligence that others could not detect. Late one night, while reviewing her notes, she discovered a hidden communication network linking several students to an unknown signal outside the Academy. Someone was coordinating with outsiders. Lyra traced the signal through multiple layers of encryption, each step requiring both skill and patience. The signal led to a section of the Academy rarely used, a maintenance tunnel running beneath the training halls. Lyra memorized the layout and prepared for a careful observation. She knew that confronting the intruders directly could be dangerous. She needed to act with strategy, not force. The next evening, she entered the maintenance tunnels. The air was cool and smelled faintly of metal and circuitry. Shadows moved along the walls as she approached the area where the signals originated. Peering around a corner, she saw the intruders, students she recognized, along with the cloaked figure she had glimpsed before. They were attempting to access the Academy's central database, likely to steal information or sabotage operations. Lyra's mind raced. She could not allow them to succeed. Using small, handheld devices from her bag, she created a subtle diversion, redirecting energy flows, triggering low-level alarms, and isolating the intruders' equipment. They struggled to regain control, unaware of her precise interventions. Then one of the students noticed a shadow. "Who's there?" they demanded. The intruders looked around, tense and uncertain. Lyra remained hidden, calm, and observant. She adjusted the devices again, subtly locking the doors behind them and creating a controlled barrier. Within minutes, the intruders were trapped in a contained section of the tunnels. Lyra carefully approached, ensuring that she maintained a safe distance. Her calm confidence unsettled them. "You can't stop me," one of the students shouted, frustration and fear in their voice. Lyra replied quietly, "I'm not here to harm you. But I will stop your actions." Her voice carried authority without aggression, a strange mix of assurance and calm that made the intruders hesitate. At that moment, Academy security drones arrived, alerted by the subtle alarms Lyra had triggered. The intruders were quickly apprehended. The cloaked figure attempted to escape, but was also contained by the automated system she had activated. In the aftermath, the faculty reviewed the incident. They were impressed by the precision and effectiveness of the containment, unaware that Lyra had orchestrated much of it. "Exceptional work," the lead instructor said. "Whoever coordinated this deserves recognition." She had acted as humanity often did, quietly, creatively, and decisively, without seeking credit. Her actions prevented a serious breach and protected the Academy from a threat that few even realized existed. The next morning, students whispered about the incident. Some admired the unknown hero who had stopped the intruders. Others speculated about who could have acted so effectively. Lyra walked through the halls as always, calm and focused. No one guessed that she had been the one controlling the outcome, using human ingenuity to outthink the intruders. Krivos, who had been observing the situation closely, approached her. "You knew," he said simply. Lyra tilted her head slightly. "I observed. I acted when necessary." Most humans are reactive. You anticipate, plan, and adapt. You think differently. In her room that night, Lyra reflected on the events. She had identified threats, acted decisively, and prevented a serious breach. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the Academy, while powerful, was not immune to danger. Her mission required vigilance, observation, and the willingness to act when others could not. She activated the holographic device once more. "The intruders have been contained," she said. "Good," the figure replied. "You have demonstrated the value of human ingenuity. Continue to observe. Other threats may emerge. The Academy is important, but your role extends beyond these walls. Humanity's potential is greater than others recognize. I will remain vigilant and prepared." Even Krivos, once a rival determined to test her limits, began to approach her with cautious respect. "You've changed how we think about strategy," he admitted quietly. "Your approach, human approach, has value beyond what I expected." "That is all." And Lyra, a single human among countless species, had already shown that even the smallest presence could have an enormous impact. She was learning, observing, and preparing, confident that when the next challenge arrived, humanity would meet it and exceed expectations. No one at the Academy knew who she truly was, and for now, that was an advantage. She had proven that human courage, ingenuity, and adaptability could succeed where others might fail. And the galaxy, unknowingly, was about to witness much more. The Academy had returned to a fragile sense of normalcy after the containment of the intruders. Yet for Lyra, nothing felt ordinary. The previous week had revealed vulnerabilities she could not ignore. The Academy's security protocols, while impressive, could still be bypassed by clever, determined individuals. And somewhere beyond the walls, unknown forces waited. Lyra moved through the training halls with quiet determination. Every lecture, every simulation, every conversation with fellow students was an opportunity to observe, to learn, and to prepare. She noted patterns in behavior, tendencies in decision-making, and subtle hints of alliances forming behind closed doors. Nothing escaped her attention. Her next challenge arrived during the Academy's annual fleet coordination exercise, a test designed to push even the most skilled cadets to their limits. Teams were assigned to manage multiple starships across a simulated galaxy sector, responding to crises, unexpected enemy movements, and environmental hazards. Lyra's team faced immediate complications. Sensor systems failed in critical moments, communication channels dropped intermittently, and rival teams attempted to outmaneuver them. Most students were unsettled, but Lyra remained calm. She quickly assessed the situation, dividing responsibilities efficiently and predicting potential threats before they became problems. "Focus on the flanks," she instructed. "Monitor sensor feedback and adjust positions based on predicted enemy maneuvers. Don't rely solely on the displays. Anticipate and adapt." By the end of the exercise, they had achieved a perfect score, drawing admiration from instructors and peers alike. Krivos, observing closely, muttered to himself, "She's beyond anything we've seen. Humans, they think differently, and it's unnerving." Her focus, however, was interrupted by a low, urgent vibration from her holographic device. The figure appeared instantly. "There is activity in the restricted sectors," the figure said. "You must act. This is not a simulation. The intruders you contained previously were only a small part of a larger operation. Others are attempting to access the Academy's central systems." "Understood. I'll proceed carefully." She moved with the precision of someone who had done this countless times before, though no one had ever seen her in action. Ahead, she detected movement. Shadowy figures were attempting to bypass security doors and gain access to critical systems. Lyra crouched behind a support beam, observing. There were 3 intruders, students she recognized from previous anomalies, and a 4th masked figure whose presence suggested leadership. Lyra analyzed the situation. Confrontation would be dangerous. Even a small mistake could result in failure. She needed a strategy that used her human advantage: adaptability, unpredictability, and careful timing. She retrieved a small device from her bag and activated it. A soft hum filled the corridor as the device emitted a low-frequency pulse, disrupting electronic systems. Cameras blinked offline, doors locked and unlocked in a precise sequence, and the intruders' tools malfunctioned. Panic rippled through them as they struggled to regain control. Lyra stepped into view, her posture calm, her presence commanding. "Stop what you're doing," she said firmly. "You cannot succeed here." Using the device, Lyra manipulated the environment further. Doors sealed behind the intruders, isolating them from escape routes. Energy fields created temporary barriers, containing their movements without causing harm. Her human ingenuity allowed her to control the situation with minimal effort, turning what could have been a confrontation into a precise, controlled containment. Within moments, Academy security drones arrived, triggered by subtle alarms Lyra had activated. The intruders were apprehended, their plans thwarted. The masked figure attempted a final desperate move, but was intercepted by automated systems she had guided into position. In the aftermath, the faculty reviewed the incident with surprise and admiration. "Who coordinated this?" the lead instructor asked. "The intruders were contained before they could reach any critical systems." The next day, rumors of the unknown hero spread among the students. Some admired the mystery, others speculated endlessly about the person responsible. Krivos, still processing what had occurred, approached Lyra during a simulation debrief. "You knew," he said simply. "You were behind it all. You're different. Most humans react to circumstances. You anticipate them. You create solutions no one else considers. Humans have survived and thrived because we learn, adapt, and take decisive steps." She reviewed security footage, sensor data, and her own observations. She noticed subtle patterns, small inconsistencies in student behavior, signs of hidden alliances, and indications that the Academy might face further challenges. She documented everything, carefully piecing together a picture that only a human mind, combining logic and intuition, could assemble. In the days that followed, Lyra continued to excel in her studies while quietly monitoring potential threats. She maintained her calm demeanor, never drawing unnecessary attention. Other students, even those who had previously been suspicious or envious, began to respect her. They saw her not just as talented, but as a symbol of the unique strengths humans brought to the galaxy. One evening, as she walked along the observation deck, Krivos joined her. The stars stretched endlessly before them, distant suns casting a soft glow over the Academy's platforms. "Lyra," he began, "I underestimated humans. Your approach, it's different. You think creatively, act decisively, and adapt in ways we can't anticipate. We survive by learning, adapting, and overcoming. It is what has allowed humanity to thrive, even in harsh environments and against overwhelming odds. We all have lessons to share. Humanity's adaptability, intelligence, and courage will continue to be tested. Be ready to act where others cannot. You are humanity's advantage in unexpected circumstances." Her actions had prevented disaster, inspired respect, and subtly reshaped the Academy's perception of humans. The galaxy was watching, though it did not yet know it. Humanity, through Lyra, was already making its mark. Challenges would continue, but she was ready. With intelligence, adaptability, and courage, humans could meet any obstacle. And Lyra, quiet but determined, would ensure that the Academy and the galaxy understood that lesson. As she gazed at the stars, she allowed herself a brief smile. The mission was far from over. Threats would arise, tests would come, and unknown dangers would challenge her in ways no simulation could prepare her for. Yet she felt confident. Humans were resilient, inventive, and courageous. And Lyra, a single human among countless species, had already shown that even one person could change the course of events. No one knew her true origin, her hidden abilities, or the full scope of her purpose. That secrecy was her strength. She moved quietly through the Academy, learning, observing, and preparing. And when the next challenge arrived, humanity, through her, would rise to meet it. The stars beyond the Academy stretched endlessly, a reminder of the vast galaxy awaiting exploration, danger, and opportunity. Lyra's eyes reflected that expanse, calm and focused, ready for whatever came next. She was human, and in the vastness of the galaxy, that alone was a force to be reckoned with. The Academy woke to a morning unlike any other. Alarms echoed faintly through the corridors, and security drones patrolled in heightened alert. Something had changed. Lyra sensed it immediately. Her instincts, sharpened by days of observation and careful planning, told her that a new challenge had arrived, one that was bigger than the previous intrusions, more dangerous and more unpredictable. She moved quickly through the halls, her footsteps quiet but purposeful. Students whispered and hurried past, many looking anxious or uncertain. Lyra ignored the attention. Her focus was on understanding the threat and acting before anyone else could. Humanity, she knew, often succeeded when others hesitated or relied too heavily on rigid protocols. Her holographic device buzzed lightly. "Activity detected in multiple sectors simultaneously," the figure said. "The intrusions are coordinated. You must act immediately. Your adaptability and human ingenuity are required to neutralize the threat before it escalates." Through the reinforced glass, she could see ships moving at unusual speeds, some approaching from unexpected angles. These were not simulations or tests. The attackers were real, and their intent was clear: to penetrate the Academy and seize critical technology and knowledge. Lyra quickly assessed the situation. The attackers were diverse in species and strategy, each employing methods designed to exploit predictable responses. Most cadets would have panicked, paralyzed by the speed and complexity of the assault. Lyra, however, thrived in such chaos. She began issuing precise, quiet instructions to the few students she trusted, directing defensive maneuvers and resource allocations with clarity and calm. "Focus on shielding the docking bays first," she instructed. Anticipate their vector changes. Divert energy to critical systems only when necessary. Do not overreact, predict, and adapt. Using human intuition and creativity, she devised unconventional defensive strategies, rerouting power, manipulating shields, and employing tactics that none of the Academy's protocols had accounted for. Meanwhile, she moved through the Academy's corridors with precision, intercepting small teams of intruders attempting to breach sensitive areas. She used her knowledge of the building's layout, subtle technological interventions, and her human ingenuity to neutralize threats efficiently, always without unnecessary confrontation. Her calm presence unnerved the intruders, who had expected fear, hesitation, or chaos. Instead, they faced calculated and unpredictable resistance. Krivos and Velier worked alongside her, following her strategies even when they didn't fully understand them. "Her thinking, it's different," Krivos muttered. "She anticipates, adapts, and improvises in ways we cannot. Humans, they are extraordinary." Her focus was on saving the Academy, protecting the students, and preventing the attackers from achieving their goal. In the central control room, she initiated a series of interventions that few could have conceived. She synchronized defense drones, manipulated energy shields to create unpredictable barriers, and rerouted power to both offensive and defensive systems with precise timing. The attackers found themselves blocked at every turn, their carefully coordinated assault unraveling before her human creativity and foresight. At one point, a masked intruder attempted to hack the Academy's main database directly. Lyra identified the signature immediately. Using a handheld device, she created a decoy system, diverting the intruder's focus while simultaneously alerting security drones to the intruder's exact location. Within minutes, the threat was contained, the intruder apprehended without harm. Lyra's actions were not just reactive, they were strategic. She anticipated secondary attacks, created contingencies for unexpected movements, and adapted in real time. The Academy's cadets, initially panicked, began to rally under her guidance. Even those who had doubted her abilities now followed her example, inspired by her calm, creative, and decisive approach. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The assault continued, but Lyra's presence ensured that no critical systems were breached. Slowly, the attackers' coordination faltered. Their attempts to outmaneuver the Academy were met with resistance at every turn. Lyra's combination of observation, intuition, and strategic improvisation allowed her to neutralize threats efficiently, often before the attackers even realized they had been countered. Finally, the last of the intruders was apprehended. Academy security systems restored normal operations, and the docking bays returned to calm. Students, exhausted but safe, began to emerge from their shelters. Whispers spread quickly. Someone had prevented disaster. Someone had acted decisively, creatively, and without seeking attention. Lyra stood quietly in the central hall, observing the aftermath. She had succeeded, but she knew that recognition was not her goal. Her mission had always been larger than accolades. Humanity, she understood, often achieved greatness quietly through action rather than words. Krivos approached her, his expression a mixture of awe and respect. I don't know how to describe it," he said. "You anticipated everything. Every move we didn't see coming, you predicted. Humans, I underestimated you." That is the strength of humanity. We survive and thrive by seeing beyond the obvious, thinking creatively, and acting decisively. She had orchestrated much of the defense, yet she did not seek credit. The recognition of humanity's potential was more important than personal accolades. Later, she returned to her dormitory. The city of stars beyond the Academy's windows stretched endlessly, reminding her of the vast galaxy and the countless challenges it held. Her mission was far from over. Humanity's place in the galaxy was only beginning to be recognized, and she knew that future trials would test both her skills and her resolve. She activated her holographic device one final time that night. "The Academy is safe," she reported. "The intruders have been neutralized. Your actions have preserved the Academy and inspired those around you. Humanity's potential is greater than others have realized. Continue your mission. The galaxy is watching, and your example will shape the perception of humans for years to come. Humanity must be ready for every challenge." The following morning, the Academy's students gathered in the main hall for announcements. The faculty commended the cadets for their composure during the assault and praised the unknown individual whose efforts had ensured success. Whispers of admiration filled the hall, and though Lyra remained quiet, she observed the pride and respect growing among her peers. Krivos approached her privately. "You've changed how we think about humans," he said. "Your actions have shown that we cannot underestimate your species. You've demonstrated creativity, courage, and adaptability beyond anything we expected. It is not just skill, it is perspective, determination, and courage." Students continued their studies and training, but the memory of the assault and the unknown defender lingered. Respect for humanity grew quietly, subtly influencing interactions, strategies, and collaborations. Humans, once underestimated by other species, were now seen in a new light. Lyra continued her studies, her observations, and her preparation. She knew that the galaxy was vast, and threats and opportunities awaited beyond the Academy's walls. Her role was far from over. Humanity's potential was just beginning to be recognized, and she would ensure that it was understood, respected, and appreciated. One evening, she stood on the observation deck, gazing at the endless expanse of stars. Each light represented a world, a civilization, and a story yet to unfold. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. Humanity had the power to thrive, to lead, and to inspire. And she, a single human among many species, had already begun to prove that even one person could change the course of events. No one knew her true origin or the full extent of her abilities. That mystery remained her strength. She had shown courage, creativity, and adaptability in the face of danger. She had acted decisively when others could not, and she had inspired respect for humanity in a galaxy that had once overlooked it. The stars stretched endlessly, a reminder of the challenges, discoveries, and adventures yet to come. Lyra's eyes reflected that vastness, calm, focused, and ready. Humanity had a place in the galaxy, and through her actions, that place had been firmly established. With a quiet determination, she turned from the observation deck and walked through the Academy's halls. There would be more challenges, more unknowns, and more threats, but she was ready. Humanity would rise to meet them, and Lyra, quietly, relentlessly, would ensure that humans were never underestimated again. The galaxy was vast, but so was humanity's potential, and that potential had only just begun to shine.